Have you ever sat, watched Scream 3, and wondered to yourself, why is this film so bad? I mean, it's not terrible, but when you compare it to the first two, and the fact that it was supposed to be the wrap up of the Scream trilogy, you have to ask yourself, what happened? Where did it all go wrong? Well, I'm about to explain it all for you. And I find it extremely important given that Scream 5 will be released in 2022, because there may or may not be elements from Scream 3 in Scream 5. I mean, it's very likely a lot, if not all, of Scream 3 will be completely left out. And you'll understand why when all is said and done. But it's also a reason Scream 4 had no real continuity with it outside of the time lapse and Sidney's return to Woodsboro. So, let's dive into the issues and reasoning behind why Scream 3 wasn't successful, the problems with Scream 3, and how it ties into Scream 4 and the upcoming Scream 5 film. Before we get started, hit that like button for a successful Scream 5 film, and subscribe to the channel, followed by the bell notification so you never miss an upload. The original Scream is often credited for saving the slasher genre, because it was considered a played out and repetitive genre by most at the time. Scream came along and completely flipped the slasher film on its head, sort of reinventing it, adding a fresh new style and take. This led to major success, and with that usually come sequels. Scream 2 was equally, if not more, successful, and considered by many to be better than the original. It was then revealed Scream would be a trilogy. This got fans of the franchise super excited, getting to see a wrapped up conclusion to the franchise so beloved. Scream 3 had to be great, right? I mean, Scream 1 set the bar. Scream 2 arguably raised it higher. Scream 3 was going to make it in a league unreachable. Then, on February 4th, 2000, we got Scream 3. And it was all but a great conclusion to the franchise. It got killed by critics and fans alike, many saying to this day it was the worst film of them all. And Scream 3 was a hot mess. Production was all over the place, there were behind the scenes issues, the story was changed several times, the film itself wasn't fluid at all, and really random in a lot of ways. The story had no real continuity with the other two. It completely sort of retconned a lot of the first two films, with Roman randomly being this sort of mastermind behind it all, completely taken away from the legacy of Billy and Stu. It made it as if Billy wasn't this brilliant serial killer that orchestrated everything perfectly. And yes, he was still the one creating and responsible for the Woodsboro killings, but it wasn't really the motive we got in Scream 1. Roman's story and reasoning fell completely flat and didn't make a real believable case. Just the random, I'm your long lost brother that never knew you and you never knew about me and I'm upset at you for your tragic life and want attention, so I'm killing you and everyone you know. The movie caused the franchise to really take a hit. A lot of people felt it was by far the worst in the series. And the way it ended, the overall story, really didn't do the franchise justice as a conclusion of this trilogy. And the franchise at the time really seemed to be dead. But why did all of this happen? They had a vision. They had a great idea and a plan in place to really wrap up this incredible franchise. So why did it all get scrapped? Have a ton of rewrites and changes, production issues, behind the scenes drama, and do this weird thing of having Roman be the lone magician instead of Angelina being the second killer as intended? Well, for starters, Kevin Williamson was replaced halfway through the film by screenwriter Aaron Kruger, who Aaron is most known for The Ring. And though Kruger adapted some of Williamson's notes, the film faced constant rewrites during production. Kevin was, outside of West, the most important part. He was the guy that made Scream 1 and 2 successful and had the story and vision for Scream 3. Even the story with Ghostface was completely different than what we got. It was more of a cult-like following, with several Ghostfaces teaming up, not a lone wolf Ghostface like we got. If you want to have an idea of what Scream 3 was supposed to be, just watch the show The Following. Most of the story and elements Williamson was going to use in Scream 3 was adapted into that show. With Williamson gone, there was no real direction now, and thus everything had to be completely changed. Now, the other major reason for the rewrites was Neve Campbell, who only plays arguably the most important character in all of Scream. So, how important could she have been, right? Well, did you notice how Sidney was barely in Scream 3 at all? And it seemed to focus more on the other characters as well as Dewey and Gale? That's because Neve was contractually only allowed to film for 20 days on set. While filming Scream 3, she was also midway through filming 2000's Drowning Mona. So, due to Campbell's limited time on set filming, the entire Scream 3 film had to be completely rewritten. Scream 3 was originally meant to focus on Sidney's secluded life, specifically her choice to self-isolate after the events of the first two films. The film was supposed to deal with the trauma caused by her horrific past, and of a woman that has been through so much, she has become so guarded and paranoid that evil is right around the corner constantly. And yes, we got small glimpses of this, but in reality it wasn't much, and definitely wasn't the focus during the film. It would have been really interesting to see this play out, our tough, fearless Sidney truly being affected by her life, and just being completely vulnerable. Well, let me know what you think, and if you would have wanted to see this unfold. Let me know down in the comments. On top of that, midway through filming of Scream 3, the script wasn't even finished, and they did a lot on the fly. Piecing together the film that we got today, these numerous script changes, rewrites, issues with their lead characters, Williamson's departure, made for a disastrous making and finished product of the film. Instead of getting the product that was Scream 1 and 2, we ended up with a film that was all over the place. Retconned a lot of the original films, had Roman as a sort of random character with no real build-up, and honestly, suddenly at the end, to be Sidney's long-lost half-brother, it left the audience with that real, what? Well, fast forward 11 years, and we get Scream 4, which I made a few videos on already, so I won't go too in-depth into Scream 4 overall, but I'll link those videos down in the description so you can check them out after this one. So, Scream 4 was presented, and no one really wanted to be a part of it originally. Though nothing was 100% confirmed, Wes said he wanted no part of it, and the OG threes of Neve, who plays Sidney, David, who plays Dewey, and Courtney, who plays Gale, also said they wanted no part of it. But with some real convincing, Wes eventually came around, and thus the OGs followed suit. But even then, Courtney was said to have wanted to be killed off. There was a rumor that David asked for the same thing to happen, and Scream 4 wasn't off to the best start. The issue was they didn't want to reboot the franchise, so it was said and presented to Wes and the rest to be a new beginning in a lot of ways, that this would start another trilogy, sort of getting back to the roots that made Scream so successful, but with a more modern spin. So, Scream 4 was released to success, but even Scream 4 had its mixed opinions and reviews. Unfortunately, with Wes's passing, that all but put an end to the potential Scream trilogy and the franchise as a whole for a while. Though, there was a Scream series, but I'll most likely save that for another video, only if you want me to cover it, so let me know down in the comments. But, fast forward 10 years, and we have what is supposed to spark a new trilogy in Scream 5, with Kevin Williamson returning to the helm. And now, I have a ton of videos covering every possible thing in regards to Scream 5, so anything you want to know, give my channel a look over, and also subscribe to stay updated with all of the Scream 5 news. But due to Wes's passing and also the lack of quality Scream 3 and Scream 4 had, none of the OGs wanted to return. The new group in charge of Scream 5 didn't want to reboot the franchise, but wanted it to be a continuation of the previous films, though calling it Scream still wanted it to be its own film and its own beginning in a lot of ways. It took some real convincing by the producers and Kevin Williamson to get the OGs on board, as far as writing letters to them promising to do Wes and Scream as well as their characters justice. Scream 5 is yet to be seen, so we won't know if this film is going to be the thing that kind of get the franchise back on track. I guess we'll find out in its 2022 release. But given the fact the OGs, who all but swore off doing another Scream film, decided to come on board once they saw the direction and the vision of this film, it's safe to assume, I think, that Scream 5 will do what it is intended to do and have success, thus starting a new trilogy, and hopefully not getting rid of Williamson at the end of it, and giving us fans a quality Scream film that we deserve. And with that, I leave it up to you and your opinions on Scream 3, 4, and what you want to see in Scream 5. Join the discussion down in the comments and let me know. I personally am excited as a fan of Scream to have another film, though at the same time, I don't want them settling for any film just because it's Scream and they know people will watch it. I want a quality slasher, and the inherent reason Scream was so successful. That sort of whodunit mystery with some suspense and quality kills that really keep us engaged from the start. I also want quality characters outside of the OGs that we as an audience get invested in and really enjoy. Not just a bunch of throwaways wrapped up and supported by the OG characters. Because this is supposed to be a new direction and beginning, and we don't know if the OGs will want to continue making these Scream films. Yes, it's possible that they're on board for the trilogy. I just look at all of the convincing it took for Scream 4 and 5, and I don't know if they'll be able to be convinced on future films, especially if this Scream doesn't have the success. At the same time, success does sort of trump everything, so if they do a great job in providing us the Scream we hope for, then I can see the OGs being on board for the long haul, assuming they're not killed off in the film. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, followed by the bell notification so you never miss an upload. Till next time.